Welcome to another episode of the INH show. We're talking about geek culture, news, and lifestyle. Did I get that right?
You got that perfectly right. It's like we never stopped.
It's like that. Well, we're on a hot streak because it's that time of year, and we've had a lot of great movies. Maybe not.
Have we?
Great is debatable, but a lot of big movies.
A lot of great movies.
We spoke about Aquaman. We didn't talk about Bumblebee because you haven't seen it.
I haven't watched it, but you can mention it if you want.
I think it's worth watching.
Okay.
If you don't care to see transforming robots on screen, you've already seen it like 5 or 6 times.
The only thing I gotta quickly say, what I'll quickly say is the images that I've seen from the Bumblebee movie, like Starscream, Bumblebee himself, and all that, it looks pretty cool. It looks like what we grew up with. That's as far as I can tell. Like sound waves in it. It looks like a cassette deck.
Yeah,
I don't know why he's in Cybertron.
A lot of people are saying that the first 5 minutes of the movie is just all you need to see as a G1 fan.
Okay.
And in some ways that is sort of true, but again, it's a big spectacle. It's things blow up and stuff happens. Good guys become friends, and then they conquer the bad guys in the end.
Cool.
I don't think I'm giving anything away when I say that.
I'm pretty sure that's probably straightforward.
But we're here to talk about Spider-Man, our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Yep.
Into the Spiderverse.
Into the Spiderverse.
You've seen it how many times?
3 times in the cinemas.
I've seen it twice.
I want to watch it again so bad.
I could watch it again. But we're getting toward the end of the run. But yes, suffice to say, it's a spectacular, amazing.
I mean, it won an award, right?
Yes, best animated film, I think.
I believe so. Yeah. So I mean, it doesn't surprise me.
I tell you what,
all.
this film could win best movie, and I wouldn't be surprised. Like, it is that good. This is like a greatest. I don't want me to cut you off, but it's one of the best superhero movies. It's one of the best comic book movies, like literally comic book movies.
It's one of the best Spider-Man movies.
It is visually gorgeous. I think it is very creative.
No, I agree. You know what? Are we going to be agreeing about this? Because I don't like when we agree.
The only knock I have about this is that I think that you need to be able to speak the language of reading a comic book.
Right. We'll get into that in a second. So.
I think we're in agreement. This is a great movie.
I cannot flaw this movie in any way at all. I mean, I know we'll come to it because you
very minor. Yeah, there's a very minor. It's more than flaws than anything else.
Is it because you're nitpicking at it? Now you're like, I gotta find.
Not necessarily. I mean, there are I don't know if any movie really is that perfect, but this is pretty darn close.
This is close. Yeah, I mean.
And when you look at it, this movie achieves a lot. It introduces these characters.
It has an ensemble of a handful of main Spider-Men /women.
It tells you everything. Yep, it's very.
But it's all well balanced. Yeah, I mean everything.
It moves quickly. It's very. I just think it's very creative. It's inventive.
Right.
And these guys, do you know who wrote it? Like Lord Miller, Phil Lord, Chris Miller. They wrote the Lego Movie. Now they also apparently wrote Solo. But then it went through revisions and whatever else. So I'm very keen to see what that movie would have looked like. Okay. But anyway, we're here to talk about Spider-Man.
Okay, so let's just get into it. I mean, so first off, straight out the bat, I mean, I'm familiar with the Miles Morales character only because I did start reading the Ultimate Spider-Man when he started going there with Sarah Pacelli, right?
Who created Miles Morales.
Right. So I really enjoyed seeing him on the screen. And it's just slightly tweaked in regards to his dad and the mom and all that sort of stuff.
Well, I want to get into that a bit later, but yes.
But I think overall it's really good. I love middle-aged Peter B. Parker in this.
I think
middle-aged Spider-Man is
my
so
favorite.
Cool.
My favorite Spider-Man.
So good. I was never a fan of Gwen.
Sexist.
Spider-Gwen.
Spider-Gwen.
No, because for me, it was always just a fad where like, let's just bring in that and make him a really cool. But you know what? I'm not gonna lie. After this animation, I'm actually like curious to read her backstory.
And that's really one of the successes of this movie.
Smart, yeah.
Is that it introduced. So I'm really familiar with Peter Parker.
Yep.
And I'm not very familiar at all with Miles Morales outside of the fact that he has like. Did you know what his power set was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know. I just thought he was just a little kid who had the same powers.
Okay.
I don't know any. I I know Spider-Man Noir.
Okay.
And I know what Spider-Ham is. I shouldn't say I know him because I know that there is such a character.
Okay.
Like if you showed me a picture, I could have told you who he was.
Yeah. Okay.
But the big success of this movie is that it introduces all these characters.
Yeah, Spider-Man was so cool.
You think about that. You introduce so many characters, and yet I already like them.
Yeah.
Spider-Man is a character born out of tragedy, and I think they have this recurring thing which joins them all together.
Yeah,
and I think it's somewhat, I don't know if it's relatable, but it is in some ways. It's very, we as the audience can sympathize with someone who is like an underdog, and that's really what Spider-Man is. I think
it always has been an underdog.
This movie has a lot of heart. Oh, the other thing I want to talk about really quickly is, so with a lot of movies, Marvel movies, I always say that the weakest part is the villain, but that's not necessarily the case. Could you imagine that Kingpin is like the best villain? Like when you think about the original Daredevil movie, the Ben Affleck one,
that Kingpin was like...
pretty cool. I mean, you're so harsh, but I'm a fan of that movie. But I thought Kingpin was great. Did you? Okay. You don't care one way or another.
I don't love it or hate it. I was just like,
well, the Netflix Kingpin.
That was good. He was really good.
Yeah, and now if I'm going to tell you that this is another movie Kingpin, and this guy's almost as good as that Kingpin.
You know what? I don't know if I would have believed it, but watching this film, I think he was quite intimidating.
He looks like
he was intimidating, especially the silhouette they've done. So the character design for me was really awesome about this animation, right? It was every time they drew him up, because he had a huge silhouette and they always put him in a black suit. All you see is this contrast of this huge squarish shape and then a tiny little head.
Yeah, you know Bill Sienkiewicz, that artist, Bill Sienkiewicz.
Yeah.
It's like
they just took it out there.
Yeah, it was very...
the design...
He's this big, hulking guy.
Design is... I don't know. The animation was just... I'm just going through my mind about the animation, how crazy it is. Like, first off, I just want to say it is a stylized
very much
animation.
So.
And I couldn't work it out. So one of my colleagues at work, we were trying to work out, is it 3D? Is it not 3D? Is it, and I worked out like, it's maybe like they're trying to make it look like 3D, but it's not. But when I went to watch it with a mate of mine in the US, and he's an animator himself, we watched it and I was like, what do you think it is? He goes, straight away off the bat, he's like, it's definitely 3D. They've chopped out the amount of frames there is, so it looks more like a traditional style of animation. It's choppy, but that's the way they've gone about it. And I think when later on I Googled it or I looked up a couple of other videos, apparently that's what it is. How insane is that? So the style is really cool. I don't know. Well, that's awesome.
I don't understand a word of what you just said, and I hope our fans did.
It's so cool.
But to your point, it is a very stylish movie.
But it's well
thought
out.
They do things, this is a comic book movie, right? The panel designs, the use of onomatopoeia, the use of all the stuff,
everything about it, but even
like panels and like there's narration bubbles, there's thought bubbles.
That's really cool, right?
So this all, I think you sort of need to accept that, and you need to.
But they use it to their advantage, is what I think is really cool.
Like you could not make this a live action movie, because it just wouldn't quite work. Which is a little. That's not really criticism, but I'm just saying, it's not quite a live action movie.
There's so much about this that's really good, and you can tell that the production company, like the guys that animated it, just had a lot of fun doing all of this. You can tell straight away, right? So I mean, I just gotta say one last thing is like the characters. If you take a look at the way they move, each one of them, they've got their own style. Like, Miles when he jumps around and all that in the Spider, he's a bit like all over the place when he lands.
Well, because
you're right, and then. He's learning exactly. But if you take a look at like Spider-Gwen, for example, the way she like floats or she lands is just like perfect, and she jumps off. It's so smooth.
And then when you look at Spider-Ham, it looks like he was drawn like
old school like Looney Tunes,
like a Warner Brothers cartoon.
Yeah. It's so,
and it somehow just works,
Everything about it is just so thought of. It is actually insane. And watching it 3 times, I'm just like, holy crap! Like every time, like I don't get sick of it. It's crazy.
That's the interesting thing, because again, I look at these movies with a fairly casual. We talked about this in our Aquaman review. Go back and watch that. I look at it from a very casual eye, then I think, that looks cool. But you are seeing more about it
every time. It's ridiculess.
And these are things I'm happy to hear this, because this is stuff that when I watch it again, I'll probably be on the lookout for it.
Right.
But I just think that the storyline is
so good.
Just the way it looks is tremendous.
Right.
And the storyline is also
the delivery. What you were saying as well off camera before is the delivery, like telling the history of, like, everyone knows Spider-Man's story, like Uncle Ben with great power comes with all that sort of
don't
stuff.
you say it? Don't. I thought that was so. Like,
that was cool.
That
right?
is so good. Like,
but
this is
it's everything. This, and I'm gonna say as well. I know we don't have a lot of time, but there's so much Easter eggs in it. It's ridiculous. But not just Easter eggs to a comic book or Spider-Man related Easter egg. Just New York. It's New York itself.
Well,
there's so many background scenes. Like
someone's been to New York.
You go to the train station, the poles in the subways, like blue-colored poles, or everything about it. There's certain spots in like Dumbo, for example.
Well, that's one of the
Manhattan
successes
Bridge.
of these
it's
characters
crazy.
is that they're very. See, the Marvel movies are, or the Marvel superheroes are relatable characters.
Right.
The DC superheroes are the aspirational gods. And you can't really relate to the billionaire orphan or the alien, but you can relate to the kid who has these problems and he's just finding his feet, doesn't quite belong.
Man, it's like, I just keep on thinking back about all the places that they put the backdrops and all that. And I spoke to, Cindy, because I took her to watch it for my third time, her first time. And she was like, I asked her, like, do you recognize some of these places? And she's like, yeah, I recognize it, I recognize it. And even like the school that he goes to, Visions, right? It's a place in Brooklyn. It's near the Barclay Center, apparently. Like, so a lot of these spots are legit. It's not just made up places.
Well, and I think these characters are also very
it's not
much
Visions,
a product,
by the way, but
they're a product of their environment. Like, it's very it's set in that it's clearly set in New York.
And definitely.
The way they talk, the way they interact.
I mean, it is set in New York of that universe, I guess, if you can call it that.
Well,
It's like, New York NYPD is PDNY, all that sort of stuff. So
that's the other thing with this movie. It's like
reality. So
a lot happens in this movie. A lot happens. They introduce characters. Things move quickly.
Yep.
My little criticisms of this is that the climax. Are we in spoiler territory? I think we're in spoiler territory.
Spoiler.
Look, this movie's fantastic, and
it's worth watching.
The climax of this movie is a little bit of that CGI circus, where it's a little bit of the this is. The villainous plot is a one of these things where he's going to turn the lever and destroy the world. Like, that's what's going to happen. There's more heart to it. I'm obviously oversimplifying it because Wilson Fisk is trying to a villain who's so relatable. I just want my family back. It's just so.
I felt bad for him at one time,
and that's really one mark of a good villain. And he's the voice acting is just very believable.
Right.
I think Jake Johnson, is that his name? Who is middle-aged Spider-Man is great. So Chris Pine. Now, did you know Chris Pine was...
I didn't realize it was him.
Me neither.
I'm really bad with voices, right?
And by the way, I just want to say that, no, I'm not the kind of guy who Googles these things beforehand, and I didn't go into the movie thinking, this person is this person is that.
Right.
So I didn't know who he was, I'll admit that.
So Chris Pine, the voice was familiar, but I didn't know who it was. The only one that I did pick out was Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Because he's got such a distinct voice, but just from everyone else, I was just like...
I feel like Chris Pine maybe wasn't quite the Spider-Man voice that I have in my mind.
Right.
Whereas, the beat-down, worn-out Spider-Man, who's that Jake Johnson from New Girl, I think that was just... this movie is... Guys, I can't rave
I want to
enough
watch it
about
again
this
already,
movie.
just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's no surprise. I think it's a travesty. Does the Oscar have Best Animated? It does, doesn't it? That's one of the categories.
I believe so, yeah.
If it doesn't win, then I'm calling shenanigans. I think the Academy needs to be cleaned out, put me on the board, and I will tell you what the best movie is, because the best animated movie of the last maybe 5 years is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Is that what it's called? Into the Spider-Verse?
Into the Spider-Verse, yeah. And it's, oh man, I just
And stick around to the end, because the end is very good.
So
you don't want to leave the ending, all right? You don't want to walk out of these movies. When you watch these movies, you always got to stick around to the end, all right? You don't need me to tell you this.
Man, sorry, I'm just thinking back about all of it, and it's...
Oh, and do you know who that was at the end? Did you know who the voice... I'll tell you afterward, but it's... I'll just tell you now. I was waiting for it's Oscar Isaac.
Oh, right. Wow,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah, so
Holy crap.
Now, what kind of movie has Oscar Isaac?
Wow.
And, we're going to put you in, the most...
wow.
You contribute nothing to the story.
Right.
Except for this, but what a punchline he gives.
I didn't realize it was him. Holy crap.
Yes,
I'm bad with voices, like I said. But, yeah, amazing movie. How many spider people would you give
out
of 10?
I would give it 1,000,000 spider bites, spider people, spider legs, whatever. It's hard for me to really. I can't say it's a perfect movie, but this is, as I said,
as close as perfect you can get, right?
As good a comic book movie as you could get.
But you did say that what was one thing that you had an issue with is a stylized version of the blurs? Is that?
So this movie, they do the thing where if someone is in the foreground, people in the background,
with the focus points
it blurs. And I thought that was a little bit jarring. I didn't quite.
You're not the only person. I had a colleague that said the exact same thing.
It took a while. Like when I saw it again, I kind of got in. Like I knew what to look for.
Right. But beforehand, you were a bit like, oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, like I was thinking. Well, now you're just trying to be stylish for the sake of being.
Okay.
Now you're just trying to play tricks and just show me what sort of cool things you can do.
Like I said, like one of my colleagues said the exact same thing. It was like it was so distracting.
Now, is this colleague a casual movie-going fan, or is he like does he have an eye for these things?
He's not a comic book guy. He's a UX guy in my.
What does that even mean?
User experience for design.
Right. Okay.
So he's got a bit of a design eye to things.
Okay.
But
that's what I wanted to know.
Not to the degree of like filming and stuff like that.
Well, what would you give this out of? What can you even rate this?
I can't even rate this because it's so good. I can't flaw it.
I really wish that there will be. I
want to watch it again.
I have to imagine there'll be more. It kind of ends in such a way that I don't know whether. Well, I shouldn't say that they can never revisit and cross into either Spider-Verses, because any sort of
aren't
story.
there rumors that they're gonna do? They're already.
If you just give me like a Miles Morales movie, like that'd be great.
Aren't they gonna get into the second one? At the moment already?
Well, see, I wonder whether it'll cheapen it if suddenly Spider-Gwen shows up and Spider-Man Noir, if I just pluck the two of them and they're like,
we're going a duo type.
Yeah, like, do we need to do that again?
True. I'd love to see actually, no. I was going to say, I'd love to see a TV series of it, but probably not. Overkill.
More
overkill.
Of it. Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, let us know what you guys thought. Leave a comment below. Let us know what you guys want us to talk about now that we're back.
We're back. We'll try to make it as regular as possible.
Yeah, we'll talk movies. We'll talk... I don't know. You're back at the gym. We can talk about your
I lost a bit of muscle while I was over in New York.
We'll talk about oral hygiene practices.
Oh, absolutely.
Let us know what you want us to talk about. Like us and follow us and do all that stuff.
And I guess we'll see you guys next time
on the next INH show.
See ya.